Hi, I'm Christian Triola, author of The Missing Method for Guitar books. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to play the Buddy Holly classic Peggy Sue on guitar. Now, the great thing about this song is that it's pretty easy to play. So if you're a fairly new player, this will be a really fun one to do. Now, there are a couple of spots that take a little more work than the others, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. But before we get started, make sure you stop by our website, themissingmethod.com, and if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get a free ebook, so keep that in mind. Also, too, I've included a PDF of the song along with this video. All you have to do is click on that, download it, and you can take that with you and practice it anywhere. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, Buddy Holly, as many of you know, was one of the earliest rock stars, basically. He was big in the late 1950s, and he was pretty young, too, when he started out. And of course, most famously, he tragically died at the age of 22 in a plane crash, along with, of course, the Big Bopper and Richie Valens, in a very famous news story. In fact, there were songs written about that day, the day the music died, all that sort of thing. But on a positive note, in the short time that Buddy Holly and the Crickets were together, they put out a lot of great music. And of course, Peggy Sue is one of his most famous hits. The song itself, interestingly enough, was originally called Cindy Lou after Buddy Holly's niece. At least that's the story that I've heard. And then later, their drummer, Jerry Allison, was dating a woman named Peggy Sue. They loved the name. They threw it in the song. And of course, she was embarrassed when she first heard him play it. She's like, oh man, I can't believe they wrote a song about me. But it's become a huge hit. And of course, that's what we'll be talking about today. So let's get started into the song. So what I'm going to do is take it section at a time, show you the chords, show you how to strum it. And then at the end of the video, I'll show you how to put all the different pieces together so that you can play the song as a whole. So of course, this is the rhythm guitar part, the part that Buddy Holly plays. And on the intro, we only have 3 chords. In fact, the whole song, I think, only has 4 chords. So most of them show up right in the intro. We have A major to start, which looks like this. We have our first finger on the note A, 3rd string, 2nd fret. Middle finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret. And then I tuck the 3rd finger on the 2nd string, 2nd fret. And when you strum it, you strum 5 of the 6 strings. All right, that's the A chord. Now at the beginning of the song, you simply strum that as a downstroke 4 times. 1 and 2 and. Next up, we switch to the D major chord. D major, of course, your first finger stays on that 3rd string, 2nd fret. Your middle finger goes on the 1st string, 2nd fret, and your 3rd finger goes on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. And then you strum it the same way, 3 and 4 and, all downstroke. So far, A, D. Then it goes back to A, same strum pattern. And then we get the 3rd chord of the intro, which is E major. So to get that, first finger goes on the 1st fret of the 3rd string, 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. You strum everything on that, and you've got yourself all 3 chords of the song. And of course, you strum that in the same way you did the previous chords, 3 and 4 and. Okay, so the entire intro is A, D, A, E, and then that's repeated. So I'm going to play through the whole intro. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the intro. After that, we get into the first verse. Now, the first verse uses the same chords that we already learned on the intro, just in a different order. So our first measure of the verse is the A major chord, and we play that for a full measure, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. More traditionally counted, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we go to the D chord, do the same thing. Now the third measure, we actually switch chords halfway through. So we start with the A, 1, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4. So again, A, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4. Then we switch back to A and play that for a full measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, next up we switch back to the D chord again, but this time we play it for 2 full measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now if you notice, and one thing I did want to mention about this song is that for the most part, the intro, the verse, and the chorus is all played with downstrokes. So there's no down and up until you get to the interlude section, which happens later in the song. So I did want to mention that before we got too much further. So let's get back to it. We just did that D chord. Then we go to a measure that switches between A and D again. So we have A, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4. Then back to A for a full measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now we're coming into the last 4 bars of the verse. We go to the E major chord. We play that for a full measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the D. Then A, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4. And that's kind of the turnaround that happens in the last 2 bars of the verse. So I'm going to go over that again a little bit more slowly. A 4 times. D 4 times. A again. 4 times again. E 4 times as well. Now in the song, after you play that verse once, you go back and play it again. And then you get to the chorus, which is what I'm going to talk about next. So in the chorus, we do have one additional chord, and it's a bar chord, and it's the chord F major. Now there's a lot of different ways to get F major. In the song, this is how they're playing it. You have your first finger covering all 6 strings. Your middle finger goes on the 3rd string 2nd fret. Your pinky goes on the 4th string 3rd fret. And then your 3rd finger goes on the 5th string 3rd fret. Now that can be kind of difficult to do, especially if you're a beginner. So you really want to work with that. Or if you've learned the F chord like this, where you're just playing the top 4 strings, you can use that one too. Either way, it'll work for the song. I like to use the bar chord because it fills out the sound more. And it's kind of how I hear it when I'm listening to the song. It sounds like a fuller chord like that. But again, if you just play the simple version, it's going to be fine. Okay, so let's get to the chorus. The first chord is A major. You play that for 2 full measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we come up to that F major chord. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then it goes back to A for a full measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. After that, we now go to D for 2 full measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Back to A. 1 and 2 and D and 4 and A. 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so that was the second line of that chorus. So the ending of that chorus after those 2 measures of D again is, so it's A for 4 strums, 1, 2, 3, 4, D for 4 strums, and then a full measure of A, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, the final line of the chorus starts with the E major chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's a full measure. Then the D full measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we switch back and forth between A and D in the next measure, and then A and E in the last measure. So it's the same turnaround that you played in the verse. So let me go through that. A, D, A, E. Okay, after the chorus, you then go back and play the verse, but only one time this time. So it's not repeated like it is the first time around. Then after you do that verse, you go into the interlude. From the interlude, you go back to the chorus, and then from the chorus to the coda or outro, whatever you want to call it there. Let's go over the interlude next, and then finally I'll wrap things up with the coda section. So the interlude is the only time you need to use a strum pattern that's not just downstroke. And of course, the chords remain the same as they do in the verse or the intro. So it's just A, D, and E. However, the strum pattern is different. So first off, we get the A chord, and we have 1 and 2 and, that's held over, and 4. So beat 3, you don't strum anything on. 1 and 2 and 4. Then you switch to D, you do the same thing. 1 and 2 and 4. After that, for 2 measures, it gets a little bit more complicated. It's not hard once you get the hang of it. It may take you a while your first time through. All right, we start with the A chord on this section. You strum it. So we have down, down, up, down. Switch to D, down, up, down. Switch to A, down, up, down. Switch back to D, down, up, down. That last down is actually the first beat of the next measure. Then we switch back to A for down, up, down, back to D, down, up, down, and then finally A, down, up, down, down. All right, so I'm going to go through that again just so you can follow along. So A, 1 and a 2, switch, and a 3, switch, back to D, back to A, back to D, back to A, and then extra A on the end. So if you're counting that traditionally, it's 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and. Now when you hear them play it, it's much faster. In fact, the end result will sound like this. And then it moves on, of course. So that's pretty quick. So that's definitely a spot you'll want to go over slowly and really take a look at that PDF to make sure you've got that strummed correctly. Now after that, it gets much easier again. It's really just those 2 measures that are a little bit tricky there. So let's go on to the next measure. We have down, down, right on D chord. So down, down, quarter notes, 3 and 4 and. So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Then in the next measure, we're still on a D chord. We rest for half a beat, play on the and then we play on the and of 2 plus 3 and 4 and. So it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All downstroke. Again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so I'm going to go through those last 2 measures once more. D, 2, 3, and 4, and rest, and 3, and 4, and. One more time. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and rest, and 3, and 4, and. Then we switch to the A chord in the next measure. 1 and a 2, and. So it's down, 2/16, down, down, eighth notes. 1 and a 2 and. Switch to D, it's the same strum pattern as the A. D and a 3, 4. Or D and a 4 and. Really just depends on how you like to count it to keep track of that. So that measure altogether is A and a 2 and D and a 4 and. And then after that, it's pretty smooth sailing. We have A, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's a full measure. E for a full measure. Back to D for a full measure, but this time it's strummed a little bit differently. It's quarter, eighth, 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 quarter. Or 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Then we do the same turnaround that we had on the verse and the chorus. A, D, A, E. And that gives you the entire interlude. So I'm going to go ahead and play through the whole interlude so you can hear what it sounds like together. Here it is. Okay, now after that interlude, we go back to the chorus. So you would play the chorus next, and then finally you would end on the coda after that last chorus. Now the coda is similar to the chorus. I'm just going to go through it chord at a time here. So again, we start with the A major chord, strum that for a measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Switch to the D, strum that for a measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Back to the A, we strum it for 2 measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we switch to D and strum that for 2 measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The next measure, we have 2 chords. We do the A and then the D, just like we've done before. A and 2 and D and 4 and. Then the A chord for a full measure. So you can hear it's very, very similar to the verse, actually. And then we get to the last 2 lines. Starts on E major. So we have E for a full measure, D for a full measure, A, D, A. Next line is basically the same thing except for the very ending, which I'll go over in a second. So again, E for a full measure, D for a full measure, A for half, D for half, and at the very end, 4 downstrokes for 1 and 2 and. Then you stop the sound by resting it on the strings, or like that. Okay, so I'm going to give you a demonstration of the coda. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have it. That's everything you need to know to be able to play Peggy Sue by Buddy Holly and the Crickets. So just to recap, we have the intro, verse, which is played twice, chorus, back to the verse, but only played once, the interlude, back to the chorus, and then finally the coda or outro. And then you'll have everything you need to play Peggy Sue. All right, so to end this video, I'm just going to go ahead and play through the intro, verse, and chorus. I'm going to only play the verse once, just so you can hear what those sections sound like all together. And then, of course, you can go ahead and start practicing it. So here it is, right from the top, the intro. Now we're going into the verse. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you learned something from it, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, and also subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already, go to themissingmethod.com, and when you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a free ebook, so keep that in mind. All right, so get to practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.